Hey Grace Church, welcome to the weekly for the week of July 21st. My name is Josh, and today we are talking about Jesus being our rest. In Hebrews chapter 3, the author has been comparing Jesus to other figures like apostles, prophets, angels, saying Jesus is greater. And then in chapter 3, he starts to build an argument about Jesus being our rest. And in verse 1, he says, "Therefore, holy brothers and sisters who share in the heavenly calling, fix your thoughts on Jesus." So the author of Hebrews is trying to make a connection that our mental life and our spiritual life are connected. If we want to feel the rest of God, the ground zero of that battle is in our mind. That we should be stopping throughout the day to have these thought breaks where we rest our bodies, rest our minds, and rest our spirit in thoughts about Jesus. But that's no easy task. We have got to take thoughts captive and make them obey Christ. So that puts the tension in front of us, which is the Christian life is working to stay faithful to Jesus while resting in the faithfulness of Jesus, where you're actively trying to stay in union with God while resting in the fact that Jesus has paid it all for you to have union with God. And that's just part of the dance, but you have got to do that if you want the rest that God offers. And then the author goes on to start comparing Jesus to Moses in verse 3, saying Jesus is found worthy of greater honor than Moses, just as the builder of the house has greater honor than the house itself. And so he's taking the greatest figure in the Old Testament, Moses, and saying Jesus is not compared to him. There's no comparison, that no one or no thing should be exalted over Jesus. And if we in our lives aren't fixing our thoughts on Christ, we probably aren't experiencing his rest. If we're elevating things over Christ, then we're probably not experiencing his rest. I talked about the TV show The Chosen, in the classic scene where Jesus is in Nazareth teaching, and the rabbi starts to confront Jesus and say, "What are you teaching? Are you saying you're the Messiah? Are you saying you're a prophet?" And Jesus says, "Yes, I'm saying those things." And then the rabbi calls to the highest authority, which is the law of Moses, and says, "If you don't recant, we're going to have to follow the law of Moses." And Jesus responds, "I am the law of Moses." That is not in the Bible, but it could be. It's a story of showing Jesus being the one who's above the house. That Moses is a project manager, but Jesus is the architect. Moses lifted the staff, but Jesus parted the Red Sea. Moses led the people in the wilderness, but Jesus provided the manna for them. And so then the author of Hebrews turns to the Exodus story and finishes by saying, "Don't harden your hearts like they did in the wilderness, or you won't enter my rest." And so we ended the sermon by saying Jesus is trying to lead you out of bondage, but you and I remain enslaved. That the Exodus story placed over our lives shows that we've been brought out of slavery, we've been brought out of sin, but we're not yet in the promised land. We have to make choices of whether we're going to wander in the wilderness or we're going to experience the rest that Jesus offers us. And every time we ignore God's voice, we're taking a step towards hardening our heart. I referenced a time in my life where I feel distant from God. It's often because of something I haven't surrendered to him. Now, sometimes I would say that God is distant from us because we are stuck in something that maybe is morally neutral. It's not sin, but we're just battling something. Other times in the wilderness where God is intentionally giving us space so that he can minister to us in a unique way. But for me, I just feel like I can say with a sense of confidence that if you want more of God's rest, it comes through obedience. It comes through trusting him and obeying him. And so, church, we want to be people who rest in Jesus. Nothing else satisfies. The beach and the mountains in Santa Barbara, the wine country in Temecula, the vacation in Europe, whatever it is, rest is fleeting in those experiences. The author of Hebrews is saying if you want to enter God's rest, you only do that through Jesus.